we get experimental science. We're curious, non-judgmental.
Nye, you had a question about the woolly mammoth. If you're interested, Nye, I can pull out the sample. We do have woolly mammoth samples that we can look at under the microscope. It is the hair of the woolly mammoth. We have some fur from it that was sent to us from one of the labs that's doing some sequencing on the animal. The woolly mammoth project is actually not trying to bring back the woolly mammoth. The Woolly Mammoth Project now is being run at Harvard University by the lab headed by George Church. All he wants to do is to fill the void left behind by the woolly mammoth. So he thinks that the woolly mammoth is important to the environment by stomping down the permafrost and helping with slowing down global warming. That is the big catch that he thinks will happen. So he thinks he can do this by changing 39 genes in the genome, the Asian elephant, to make a woolly mammoth. So, Nye, that's a great question. There may have been some animal that added something to it, but of recent archaeological evidence, geological evidence suggested those were the last animals actually making a difference to it. And so that's one of the big catch, is that you need these kind of creatures that have been shown to have the behavior to be able to do this. Now, the big question is, Chad, if you successfully, clone this woolly mammoth surrogate, and it's not really a woolly mammoth, right? I don't think so. It's 39 genes. It is not the entire genome of the woolly mammoth. How do you know that those 39 genes are going to correspond to behavior? So how are you going to know that the mammoth's going to know what it has to do? Right, that's the difficult part. You have no idea about that. And they also will say in this video, too, that they think, they need something like 40 of these woolly mammoths as a starting population. And so amount of time to gestate, to be born. Right, so we don't know. They walked around and they stomped down this layer, but what genes govern behaviors. So what behaviors do they need to do in order, and genes to be able to know to do these behaviors? So it's you'd want it to be straightforward, but it's not going to be straightforward of that. And it's probably not even one gene, right? So of these 39 genes, some of them might make them hairier so they can survive better in the frozen tundra, right? Because how are you going to train something that you don't know how to train, that you don't know how the behavior is going to pan out, and then all of a sudden just set them loose and do this behavior? There's a lot left to be asked, but I think it's really, really cool nonetheless in terms of an idea. Additional melting of permafrost contributing to continued ocean rise. That as well, too. So, Kura, the water indeed will be an effect to it, but on top of the water being an effect to it, you'll also have, it's actually probably going to be a continued loop, right? Because you're going to make it even warmer with the release of the methane as well as the carbon dioxide, which is then going to cause more temperature rise, which is going to cause more and more and more and more issues. So it's going to be very much an additive thing. And I think that's the big catch here for those wondering about the woolly mammoth being brought back to life. That's not his goal. That's his direct words right here are just saying that's not what his goal is. All right, do y'all want to see some woolly mammoth fur? We do have some available that we can look at underneath the microscope. The heck with it. We're talking mammoths. Let's go ahead and grab that sample. But so this is from a lab. So we had a question of where we got these specimens from. So this is from a research lab. And so they collected this. This is it's estimated to be between 14,000 and 70,000 years old from the Pleistocene era. And this is a sample of woolly mammoth fur. Lena and I do school visits to teach kids about science, and this is always a fun one to show kids. And I think adults too, as if you zoom in under the microscope and then you can see look, these are those fibrous samples of woolly mammoth fur. Is it from frozen samples? No. So this is from the frozen samples. So they have not, to my knowledge, regrown woolly mammoth fur just in a dish. Rather, this is cuttings of the fur. Now, this doesn't have any genetic information in it because you don't have essentially where the stem cells are, where the hair is growing out from. Instead, this is just a cutting. If you took my hair and cut here, geez, yep, exactly. Hair is just that keratin, dead cell. So you got nothing up on in here. So Kuro, so the cell that's going to be from the stem cell you're pulling out. This is just keratin. Different material that's growing out from. So when the cells divide, you're not having the genetic information in this. You need that stem cell to be able to extract it. I wonder why mammoths are brown and not white like most Arctic creatures. So blue phoenix, that is a great question. Suspicion of that color is for heat as well, of like pulling in heat and the way that they're able to maintain and keep that heat in. So actually, if you look at this hair, there's two different textures. There's a thick fur, that's like the undercoat that maintains the heat within the body. And then there's a darker coloration of a thinner hair on top of the body, and that's attracting the warmth of the heat, the absorption of the heat versus reflecting the heat. And so the suspicion is that's the two of the reasons why you have this kind of coat. Yep, there's two coats that we found blue. So blue, when you go in for these specimens and you're chopping it away, like you're going in and you're getting any of this coloration, you're seeing the coloration, you're chopping off the fur, you will see both of these types of fur. And supposedly we could feel the difference. However, again, with this specimen, I tend not to want to open it up, because if we open it up then and I start touching it with the oils on my fingers, it can be quite bad for the sample, and so I don't want to ruin any of it. So that's one of the reasons why I haven't done anything like that on this specimen. Yes, exactly, Kuro. Like the underside was like almost an airtight to maintain that heat onto it, which I think it's quite fascinating of like how much was actually put on there. So yeah, two different kind of coats on this. And also for the predators, blue phoenix, so like the Arctic fox also has it to blend in, so it can sneak up on prey. This doesn't need to sneak up on prey because it was herbivorous too. So that's another feature of it that you can actually get from looking at the color of the fur and the coats. Like it's really cool, right? Like you can get a lot of information of these animals. 70,000 years ago at max, it's not long enough for us to be able to say like what differences there really are. The things that I have seen from other scientists, like in terms of publications, saying it's like many other similar animals in the Arctic have similar fur compositions, and it's not so much an evolutionary time quite yet. There being no modern corn elephant kids need to compare. Absolutely, Were Ducky. And so I think, I don't know, Were Ducky. I think it's cool that we can compare the idea, like, again, of this sample underneath the scope to other animals that are living in the Arctic, and just being like, well, it's going to be similar to these animals because they're living in this ecological niche. Now, here's the thing, is it's still, when you're doing the mutations to bring back that woolly mammoth, like what George Church is wanting, how will you know? Because, like, we can have these predictions, right, Were Ducky? Like, you and I can hypothesize about what these might look like and what these might act like and what the texture might be of the fur, but until we've actually done the mutations, we won't even know if we've replaced enough number of genes to get the right kind of mutation. So I think it's a very, very complicated question in terms of like when we're trying to recreate it as well. So the texture, Kuro, the outside is a little bit the way it's described. So like, there it is. This part that we're getting at, they said is a little bit more wiry in nature. So this is the top coat, and then the undercoat is going to be where it's softer, but very, very dense. So two different ways of looking at this particular sample. And so this one, I believe we just have the upper coat.